Hello and welcome along to a video that I'm going to call my deep cuts video. And by deep cuts I mean these are titles that can slip under the radar. Maybe there's some titles that only I know about, probably not. And these are ones that maybe if you were to like this certain type of genre or these certain type of movies, you would like to delve into them. Usually they're all cheap, that you can get them from CEX for next to nothing. You can get them off eBay for next to nothing. So that being said, I'm going to take you through 6 films, and I'll probably do a series of these videos because there's quite a few that I've had a look on the shelves, and the ones that I think people would benefit from seeing, and you can own them very cheaply, and also you'll get you should get something out of it, because I know I did, and I used to watch them, and I have watched them multiple times and enjoyed them a lot. So the first one is a DVD called Eat and Run. Now this was released in 1987. It was shot on 16mm, so the print isn't that great. It's not available on Blu-ray in the world at all. You can get this off eBay for a couple of quid. They'll not break the bank, and no special features, just a film. It's a comedy about a fella from an alien coming down and eating Italian people. Not Italian food, Italian people. But he spits the buttons out, so that's good. And there's a private eye called Mick McSorley who is trying to prove that he is an alien, and he's trying to get everybody to believe his story about it, which nobody does believe. And it's quite a sort of slapstick comedy, and there's loads and loads of funny lines in it. I usually quote these funny lines, you know, ad nauseum. So for me, if you want just a horror comedy, which has definitely slipped under the radar, very cheap, awful cover, mine. I don't like that cover at all. There was another cover that I had on the VHS which was better, but it wasn't great. I think this film deserves a re-release of 88 films or Arrow, and I think it would get it back into where it belongs, to be a cult classic, but a cult classic that everybody had heard of, rather than when I talk this movie about with people, nobody seems to have heard this movie. So highly recommended. The second one is a film that I got, and I believe I might have saw this on Sky Movies, so I thought I would get this because I quite liked it. I will get it on Blu-ray. There is a Blu-ray, but I think it's a German Blu-ray, and you've got a it's about £10 now. It is a good film. I would get it on a Blu-ray, but I did go for it on a DVD. It's cheap as chips again, but the film is a blood-soaked vision of hell on earth. The Devil's Rock is already being hailed as a modern horror masterpiece. Well, that's stretching the bounds of credibility a bit, but on the eve of D-Day landings, Allied commandos set out to raid an enemy positions on the English Channel. Approaching a German bunker during the nighttime raid, they hear mysterious noises and are compelled to investigate. Inside they find dismembered corpses strewn across the floors and occult symbols covering every surface. Only 2 beings remain alive. The Gestapo officer tasked with raising the forces of hell to fight for the Nazi cause, and his demon slave hungry for human flesh. Yes, it's a good little film, very atmospheric, very gory, and very it says "so" with swastikas. Yeah, that will get it. It's very watchable, and it's one of them ones where you watch it. And I do like Nazi zombie horrors type things, but it's a little bit different from that. It's a little bit, you know, how to put it. It's like of its own movie. It's not one that it's like a generic one that you don't see this type of movie very often. And yes, very much recommended. This next one is, if you can imagine, Saw, and it's a very much just like a Saw story. It's got the same things. People come together, maybe 5 or 6 people come together in a room. There's 9 obviously. Communication is the key to survival for 9 strangers who have been abducted by a masked gunman and told that one of them will die every 10 minutes until they discovered how they are all connected. Very Saw-like. But the reason why I was drawn to it for 50p from CEX was the fact that it stars Melissa Joan Hart, who is Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Now, to see her in a film like this was something I thought, that's worth a watch. It is very watchable. and to see Sabrina the Teenage Witch in what I can describe as more like an adult movie is quite strange in itself. But it's not the greatest of films, but for me it's quite an interesting film for that reason, to see sort of like a child actor be coming into like a mainstream horror film as well. It's a type of movie that I don't think she has been in any other film like a horror film. So her films seem to be more Christmas films and romance films. But yes, it is quite good in the film. It's only 15. It's not very gory, but it's gory enough to sort of make the film very watchable. I enjoyed it. The next film is a Blu-ray. The rest of them are Blu-rays, and it was released in 1969. The film, and it's called The Bed Sitting Room. Now, The Bed Sitting Room is it's like after the Holocaust, the nuclear Holocaust, although they think it's a Holocaust, although they talk about the bomb, but they don't really mention what the bomb is. In a vividly realised post-apocalyptic London, Mrs. Ethel Schrock is crowned Queen, and Lord Fortnum awaits his imminent transformation into a bed-sitting room. Meanwhile, 17-month pregnant Penelope and her parents leave the safety of their underground carriage to find her husband and finally reclaim their baggage. It was written by Spike Milligan, so that shows you it's going to be quite strange. But it's one of those it's like an offbeat comedy, but it's, to me, I saw this when I was very young on the TV and I loved it. And when it came out on Blu-ray, quite surprisingly, I just saw it on the shelf one day in HMV and thought, I've got to have that. I think you can get these for about £10. It's the print is quite good. I mean, obviously it's 1969, and it's not the best of print. It's all right. It's not going to blow your mind, but it's pretty good. And also, it's got a stellar casting of if I can see that, I don't think I can read that from here. I haven't got my glasses, but there's you've got Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Arthur Lowe, Richard Horden. You've got the debut on a film of Marty Feldman, and a host of other stars making just even a small cameo in this film. But it's nuts, but it's also very watchable and very strange as well. And if you're a fan of Monty Python and the Peter Cook and Dudley Moore, when they got together in films, when they've done films like this, and they've done Bedazzled as well, they do make a good film together. So, and also The Wrong Box as well, that was another good film. This film as well, it's because of its strangeness, it's a very good film to watch if you're a fan of late 60s, 70s British horror comedy. And it's also, like I say, it's quite unique to be, it doesn't go sort, it's not as similar, it's not it just doesn't flow like a normal like comedy film. It's very offbeat as well at times. For instance, somebody throws a stone into the water, and Spike Milligan, who's a postman delivering post to nobody's getting post anymore, but he is a postman for some reason. So as I throw the stone into the water, the sea, Spike Milligan steps up from the sea and says, "Do you mind, there's people trying to sleep in here?" So you've got all this strangeness, but it's very 70s, and it's a great film for me. And yes, it's still in print. This next one is a film that I was very surprised to see this released in the UK, because it's what you could call, I know my channel is called Mondo Chalavek Movies, and Mondo can describe a form of cinema that deals with real life killings and lifestyle of strange cults and stuff like that. So this film here, it sort of documents the sort of when Kennedy got assassinated to 1980 when John Lennon got assassinated. It talks at length about the fact of how the gun, is not, well, it's still running rife in America, about people just going crazy with guns and just things like that. And it's got there's a lot of brutality in it. There's a lot of real life murders in it. There's a lot, but as a documentary, it is quite good. It's not your sensationalist Mondo film. It's one that's got, actually, it's a bit of a thinking man's film. It is brutal, and there is a longer Japanese version in here which has there's videos of like autopsies, and then the autopsies on the Japanese version will go into more detail. So it's not for the squeamish, and it's not for somebody who doesn't, not saying like real life killing, but it's, let's just say it's a documentary with no holds barred. And it's very strange to see something like this released in the UK, because there was once a time in the UK when this would have been utterly frowned upon and it wouldn't have seen the light of day. So recommended. That the picture quality isn't that great because it's coming from sources which was like TV shows and news broadcasts and just things caught on camera. So it's not going to be super great, but it's a very watchable documentary. And if you don't mind watching a documentary with some extreme parts in it, it is highly recommended, and you can still get it, still available quite easily for £8, something like that. And it's an odd film to think that this film has been released in the UK uncut in 2 versions as well. So the last one I'm going to talk about is a film by a bloke who has made one of the films which are one of my all-time favourite films, Koyanis Katsi. And people might not know that he released this one as well in 2013. It's called Visitors, and it's black and white, and it's got the Philip Glass is the fella who's done the music, and the music is great as it is in Koyanis Katsi and Power Katsi and Nagoi Katsi. I think that's a trilogy. So I don't know if this fits in with that trilogy, but it's a film that shows mainly human faces, and you're just looking at human faces, which sounds a bit bizarre for an hour and a half, but it's very, very watchable. The music is amazing. And also I got this at CEX for £1. I don't think CEX knew what it was, so they put it in there, and I think you can buy it now. I think it's could be about the £20 mark, but try and get it cheap if you can. It was well worth the £1. There's a scene in this film where maybe for 5 or 6 minutes you're staring at a gorilla's face in high detail. The picture quality is amazing. So if you like a film that's it's not your common garden film, I don't think I've ever seen this mentioned in anywhere. You hear Koyanis Katsi mentioned, you see Koyanis Katsi on TV from time to time, but I've never ever seen this apart from this release, and I've never seen anybody talking about it or anything on any sort of Blu-ray pickups and that. But it's highly recommended, and if you didn't know about this further movie in the Godfrey Reggio directorial series, you should be amazed at this film. And it's should I say it's better than Nagoi Katsi. Koyanis Katsi is the best, obviously, but this one here, even though it just shows human faces and animal faces for most of the film, it's a great film to watch. So you can easily set an hour and a half away and just get into it. So I enjoyed all of these films. So the next time when I do one of these films, I'll do some more films of this type. If you want to talk about any of these films down below, if you want to say that you've seen any of them, if you think these are great films, if you think they are highly overrated, or even films that you thought were going to be great and they were rubbish. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Of course, this is only my opinion on these films. But I would like to think that if you ever did see these films or were interested in them, you can pick them up for cheap. If you don't like them, you've only wasted a couple of quid, but you might find yourself a small gem out there which you could maybe look at and maybe cherish like I do in the future. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you like this video, please share and subscribe, and also give a like to it as well, and comment. And thanks for looking, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.